On the 13th of December 2019, the leader of the hard-living gang, Rashid Staggy, was shot dead in Salt River, Cape Town. His death came about 23 years after his twin brother, Rashid Staggy, who was the leader of the hard-living gang before him, got killed. Interestingly, both brothers, although killed more than 2 decades apart, were shot dead in the same street and on London Road. This is the downfall of a man who decided to walk away from crime after finding the gospel. Rashid was born in 1961 in Mooirivier, Cape Town, and grew up in the Cape Flats because of the existence of the Group Areas Act, which ensured that people of color didn't live in the same neighborhood as white people. They were considered unqualified to live in the most desirable parts of town, so they got moved far from the areas housing the whites. Rashid and his family were among more than 1 million blacks who had moved to the Cape Flats. After moving to Monenberg, Rashid grew up without access to proper infrastructure and services. The neighborhood he lived in was basically poverty-stricken, and all he knew was a life of lack. Since survival was difficult, Rashid and his twin brother committed petty crimes to help themselves. Although Rashid basically gave into crime because he wanted to survive, it was only a matter of time before he saw crime as more than a means of just survival. It soon became a lifestyle, and as a teenager, he, alongside his brother, became an active drug dealers, and this was the beginning of their time away from poverty. Rashid was already a part of the Cape Town underworld as a teenager, but he was still far from all he could be as a criminal. So as he grew older, he got more violent and more influential. By the 1990s, he was no longer just any criminal. He had become a big gang leader, and his gang, the Hard Living Gang, had cells all around Cape Town, so he was very much in charge of criminal activities in his city. Rashid and his gang members were known drug dealers in Cape Town, and even had links with international drug syndicates. However, they didn't just deal with drugs. They also took part in robberies and arms distribution. Rashid had a lot in common with other gang leaders in Cape Town and the rest of South Africa, but one thing stood him out. Unlike other arms dealers who basically sold arms for money, he didn't sell arms. He supplied other gangs and individuals, ultimately buying their loyalty. Since there were lots of gangs loyal to him, Rashid and his gang were able to take part in several gang wars, and they came out on top. They clashed with the Mongrels and the Americans, and these clashes led to bloodbaths in the streets. Rashid was seated outside his home in his friend's Toyota Corolla sedan on Friday the 13th of December, 2019, when a couple of hitmen approached his vehicle and began shooting. He was shot several times and was rushed to the hospital afterward. On arrival at the Groote Schuur Hospital, he was confirmed dead. He was age 58. He wasn't the only occupant of the car when he was shot. Sadly, he was the only one that got killed. The person in the driver's seat escaped unhurt after he fled the scene. About 2 hours after his death, his daughter, Ingrid Carolus, ran out of the house shouting, "He's dead, he's dead!" After Rashid's death, Western Cape South African Police Service spokesperson, Brigadier Novella Patelwa, made a statement and said, "Police forensic experts are on the scene of a shooting incident where a 58-year-old man was shot and seriously wounded this morning in London Road, Salt River. The 58-year-old died on arrival at a nearby hospital. Information at the disposal of the police indicates that the deceased was sitting in his vehicle when 2 unknown suspects emerged, fired several shots at him, and fled on foot. Crime scene experts are currently on the scene, combing for clues that could assist the murder investigation. Woodstock police have reinforced deployment in and around the Salt River area. There was probably nothing special about Rashid's death. However, the interesting thing about it was, he was no longer the leader of the Hard Living Gang. Coincidentally, the leader of the Hard Living Gang, Bally Tips, was killed the previous day in Mitchell's Plain. At the time of Rashid's death, he wasn't active as a gangster, so it quite seemed like there was no point in killing him, and this led to several questions about his death and the reason he was murdered. Social media, as well as Cape Town Flats, came up with a number of theories about the reason he was murdered. Also, there were various scenarios about the way things would turn out. There were predictions that there would be a citywide gang war after Rashid's death. Interestingly, none of that has happened. As a matter of fact, Rashid's death seemed like one that several folks in the Cape Flats area welcomed and were really comfortable with. This is probably strange. However, he probably got into the bad books of some gang leaders after he claimed he had become a Christian. Although he was absolutely free to believe what he wanted to, some gang leaders felt he was trying to live a double life. This is because he claimed to be a Christian. However, he was still deep in criminal activities. After his death, to ensure there was no escalation, Western Cape Community Safety MEC Albert Fritz said, "It has been confirmed that Staggy was shot and killed this morning in Salt River. This follows the shooting and death of a reported gang member, aged 32 years, in Mitchell's Plain yesterday, Thursday. Staggy was shot sitting in a car in front of his house in London Road, where his twin brother Rashad was previously shot and burned alive by People Against Gangsterism and Drugs, PAGAD, demonstrators in 1996. I have been informed that police forensic experts were on the scene of the shooting incident this morning. Staggy died on arrival at a nearby hospital. He was reportedly sitting in his vehicle when two unknown suspects emerged, fired several shots at him, and fled on foot. Crime scene experts have combed the scene for clues that could assist the murder investigation. Woodstock police have reinforced deployment in and around the Salt River area. As much as Rashid could really just have been a victim of gang-related violence to lots of folks, there was a lot more to his murder. Since there were lots of unsatisfactory answers, Risk Bulletin carried out research into the cause of his death, and in the process, interviewed up to 10 people. These people were gang members, gang leaders, activists, and community leaders. After these interviews, 3 likely causes of Rashid's death were brought up. The first was when he allegedly defrauded some Nigerian gangsters who were looking to become a part of the Cape Town drug market. The second was his bad relationship with the 28's gang. And the third was the upset of one of his relatives because of a lack of promotion within the ranks of the hard-living gang. The fact is, the 3 theories surrounding Rashid's death made significant sense. However, it will be difficult to tell what really is a fact from a rumor, but regardless of what the reason for Rashid's murder was, one obvious thing was he left a lot about his business unattended to. The theory about Rashid's murder being linked to an unhappy relative was very widespread. It was one that most people who were interviewed mentioned. It is believed that due to how frustrated he was, he arranged with some hitmen to take out Rashid. Speaking about the theory surrounding Rashid's murder being a result of his fallout with the 28's gang. A long time before his murder, Rashid and his brother had worked closely with the 28's and formed an alliance known as Firm and Core. The Firm was basically about regulating the drug trade, while Core was more concerned with community development. Also, it involved partnership with the government. The relationship between the hard-living gang and the 28's was strong while Rashad was alive. Sadly, after his death, things began to fall apart. Things got progressively worse until Rashid really had no relationship with the 28's gang. Minister Fritz said, "SAPs have informed me that they are on high alert following the murder of Staggy. I call on all neighborhood watches, CPFs, and responsible community leaders to play a role in bringing calm to our people. I have been informed that police forensic experts were on the scene of the shooting incident this morning. Staggy died on arrival at a nearby hospital. He was reportedly sitting in his vehicle when 2 unknown suspects emerged, fired several shots at him, and fled on foot. Crime scene experts have combed the scene for clues that could assist the murder investigation. Woodstock police have reinforced deployment in and around the Salt River area. I further call on anyone with any information to immediately come forward and report such to their local SAP station or by calling 0860010111. There were mixed feelings surrounding Rashid's death, and People Against Gangsterism and Drugs, PAGAD, were probably comfortable with his death. One of their officials said, "So many lives have been lost through this person. So many innocent lives, particularly. Our communities shouldn't fear any rival gang uprisings or retaliation. This is a victory, definitely something we need to celebrate, rather than worry about what may happen. The people who need to be worried are the drug dealers and gangsters who need to worry what their fate is going to be. If they are wise enough, they will take lessons in what has happened in the last few days," he said. One gang leader said, "If we look at the guns that were dumped into our communities, they were in the hands of the very person that died. It can never equate. The gangs allowed Staggy to live as a civilian. They gave him leeway to a certain extent. But when he tried to operate in both domains, his death was inevitable. There is only one way to exit the gang life, and that is up through the porthole to God. People thought that there was going to be backlash after Staggy's death, but there wasn't and there won't be. It was quiet after his death because his death was predetermined by the gangs. That's how the gangs wanted it. Rashid Staggy's murder is just one of the many such murders in the South African underworld. There are a lot more, and if you want to see more videos like this, you simply need to subscribe to this channel. Also, hit the like and share buttons. There is one more thing. Feel free to leave a comment. We want to know what you think.